everyone, and welcome back. Hopefully you can all see us back on the stage. Oh, look at those emojis coming back in. Yeah, thumbs up, love hearts, funny faces, super stuff. As you can see, we are joined by Chris Ward from Chef&Sommelier, who has very kindly joined us to present his Masterclass in Glass. And we are very, very privileged for Chris to be here, and also very privileged that we have those guests that have been part of our tasting packs have had the opportunity to taste some of our champagnes in the amazing Exaltation glasses that are absolutely stunning, but also provide a superb glass for some of our champagnes. So very, very big thanks to Chris and Chef&Sommelier for providing those with us. So the next session will be taken by Chris. We have discussed the question situation, which is always the elephant in the room. If you want to ask questions at any point, just type in the box and Chris will answer them for you if we see those. And at the end of the session, we will welcome people up on stage to have discussions should you wish as well. So without any further ado, we've got a few more people in the that have logged on as well. So hello to you guys out there. Hello, Harry. Hello, Tom. A few other people have joined us. So that's great to see people joining in. So Chris, welcome to Champagne Redefined Growers Gastronomy Conference 2021, and we look forward to your Masterclass in Glass.
Thank you very much, guys. Well, I was asked to perhaps present a little bit about glassware and hopefully give a little bit of knowledge and maybe education to those that use glassware every day and perhaps don't always get to know about the products that they're using. Obviously, everybody knows about the wines, but very seldom do people actually talk about glassware. So I'm here to put that right. First of all, it's worth saying that up until probably about 10, 15 years ago, the glassware material that hotels and restaurants used was typically lead crystal. And then there was a big revolution. Started in the US where because of that word lead and lead leaching, the fact is actually you'd have to leave wine in a crystal glass probably for 150 years before there was any contamination of lead coming out of the glass. But it did cause lead to be rejected really across the globe. So I'm going to hopefully talk about the glassware that you're probably using now and some of the changes that have taken place to benefit hotels, restaurants, sommeliers, F&B managers, F&B directors that you probably don't get to hear about. So around 2 years ago, we looked at the glassware that was going into sort of premium, luxury, upscale establishments, and it tended to be the same sort of brands. I'm sure everybody's heard of them. Riedel, Spiegelau, Schotz-Fiesel, Stolzler. A lot of German crystalline brands. A few Italian ones like Bormioli Rocco, Luigi Bormioli. But they all had the same thing in common, and that was that they all produced a crystalline that primarily used one metal and then a certain amount of recycled material in the mix. So if you were Riedel, you'd use barium oxide, around 11% content, and around 20% recycled material. If you were Spiegelau, you'd also use barium oxide, around 11%, 20% recycled material. If you were Bormioli Rocco, you'd use magnesium oxide, one metal, and again 11% and around 22% recycled material. So common theme was everybody uses one metal and a certain proportion of recycled material. Why do they do that? Because it's free. The waste glass that you put back into the furnace, which is cullet, has a benefit of reducing the melting temperature of all your ingredients. But there is a disadvantage, and not many people realize the disadvantage is directly to those that are enjoying wines, to sommeliers and to the customers in the restaurants, because when you add recycled material into the mix, you add color. It might be a very small amount, but you're adding a tint to the glass. And obviously, if you're looking at a wine that has very, very pale tones, part of the assessment of the quality is to be able to determine the color, and if that's correct for that grape variety. If there is a tint in the glass, it's going to distort. And not many people realize that. So The best example is if everybody remembers back into the 80s when there was a type of glass called San Miguel, which you could buy from BHS, Debenhams, all the department stores. Came from Spain. It was 100% recycled glass. It was green and it had bubbles and lots of contamination in it. So when you put recycled material into your glass, which everybody tends to do, you're adding impurities and you're adding colour, and that's a disadvantage to wine tasting and to wine appreciation. So when we looked at this, we also looked at some of the feedback from hotels and restaurants, and that was that crystalline is quite a brittle material, and the breakage rates are very, very high. Why is that? Well, again, if you remember when you were children and you got your parents' crystal and you did that and you made it create a sound, if you did that long enough, the glass would break. You're causing it to resonate, which is actually causing it to vibrate, and all the molecules which are going in the same direction end up being jumbled up inside the wall, and eventually it'll break. Well, when you wash glasses, you can all imagine that industrial washers are throwing water at the glass, and it's glancing off the surface, off the rim and off the rest of the glass. It's actually causing it to resonate. So the washing process is actually degrading the glass and causing it to be weaker. And eventually, probably around a week after it's been going through regular cycles, you might start getting breakage. Well, that's a disadvantage because obviously crystalline glasses, they're an investment. You want them to last long, but if they start breaking, you've got to replace them. So what Chef&Sommelier did was looked at ways that they could actually combat that issue of breakage, stop the coloration issue that occurs in the glass wall, make the product more transparent. So it went through a process using its laboratories to try different ingredients, and what it ended up doing was, instead of using one metal, it used two metals, 8% barium oxide, 3% potassium oxide, and then some very unique non-ferrous, so non-metallic minerals that it had in another material which was called quartz, and no recycled material. So all of the ingredients are effectively primary minerals. It means that we actually have to heat them to a much higher temperature to get them to fuse, but what you do get is you get a product that actually is substantially stronger than conventional crystalline. So this new material is called Crystal, and it's around 30% stronger than conventional crystalline, which means when you convert that into, I guess, life cycle, we did quite a large trial with Kempinski in Germany, who were a big user of German crystalline, and they used this new material over a 3-month period, having taken out the existing glassware they were using. The breakage rate reduced by 60%. So the cost saving is substantial, especially obviously for a large scale hotel. But the benefits were also far more than just obviously cost saving from increased lifespan. The benefits obviously of the crystal material is that it has a much higher transparency. I'm just going to move to the next slide. So you measure transparency on an index where effectively 100 is completely transparent, and the crystal material reaches 98.8. Now, if you think, I'm going to sort of nip through to the next slide very quickly just to show you. If you imagine normal soda lime glass, it's normally below 97. If you were to clean soda lime glass and you use minerals like bauxite to combat the colour, so cleaning agents, then you could potentially sort of what we call high transparency glass, which would be 98. The quartz material which we had, which was effectively a crystal type material, but without metal, but also without sound, we reached 98.5. But with the crystal material, you're at 98.8. It's important to probably to say why do people prefer to have crystal and not just use conventional soda-lime glass. And that's because obviously in luxury brands, there is, I guess, a snobbery about having sound, resonance. So Krista, which is obviously a crystal, like other sort of cream materials, you have resonance. With soda-lime glass, you have a dull, muted, it's a more tinny sound. So it doesn't sound, not that customers in restaurants are hitting glasses, but of course, F&B staff and sommeliers are used to understanding, obviously, the benefits of crystal material, and soda-lime glass doesn't have any resonance. The crystal materials has another benefit. It has a higher refractive index, and that means that it's able to split light into the various constituent colors. So crystal materials have a better luster, a sparkle, a shine. They look cleaner, they look brighter on the table, which is all advantageous, obviously, to restaurateurs who want the product to be almost a centerpiece on the table. So crystal is the material of choice, especially as you go more upscale into high brands. But you want it to last long. So Krista is a new material. It's a crystal, but which is far more substantial in terms of strength and in terms of durability. It's tested to 2,000 wash cycles. So to give you an example, an independent laboratory tested all the different, brands, found that most of the other brands after 150 washes would have some surface marking, whereas you didn't get any even after 2,000 wash cycles with Krista. It's the new material for the 21st century. Let me just go back to the previous slide. One of the other benefits is that if you were to look at the stem is substantially stronger. It has a coating applied. Now, most people realise that glasses, when they come out of washers, quite often need to be polished. You have staff that come into the restaurant, they'll pick the glasses up, look for wood marks, maybe calcium deposits, and they're there polishing glasses. And a certain amount of breakage occurs as a result of that. The ideal scenario is for restaurants not to have to polish glasses. So one of the new innovations that's taken place is that actually, instead of fire polishing just the bowl, the stem, the foot, top of the foot, and the base are all fire polished, so the surface is more glossy, so that water runs off quickly and you don't get those calcium deposits which you need to rigorously polish away. So the crystal material, we changed also the manufacturing process to aid the operator not having to polish glasses, and also strengthen the stems so that they were more resistant to hand torque. Okay, so I've talked about the sound. Okay, you can actually engineer sounds depending on what sort of metal oxides you combine. Our target was to have a sound that was, I guess, symbolic of full English lead crystal, which would be 30% lead oxide. A very high tone, a very long-lasting note. Again, something that is very premium in sound. And I think we achieved that with the crystal material. So what else did we do, and what else should you be looking at with your glassware that actually denotes that your glasses will work better for you? Well, first of all, most manufacturers, so if I pick up, whether it be Schatzwiesel or Spiegelau or Riedel, the stem and the foot are actually pressed, and then they're actually fused to the bowl. So when you pick up a glass, if you were to pinch it by the stem and turn it, quite often you will feel a little seam that runs down, and that's where the mold closes. Now that's a disadvantage, and I guess if you're a sommelier, you're using three of your senses. Using, obviously, first of all, sight, looking at the colour, looking at the viscosity of the wine. You're using smell, and finally, you're using taste. So, obviously, the fourth, if you could feel something, even if it was a very small seam, is that not a distraction to the other senses? So, Obviously, what we decided to do was to get rid of that seam. It should be completely smooth. So you can see on the that little seam, it's completely disappeared. It's melted away on all chef and sommelier glasses. And that's obviously, the more sophisticated you are with your wine tasting, that's a benefit. On some glasses, if you looked at the base, sometimes there is a number. It might be F14, F15, F16, and you can actually feel it with your finger. That actually is the mold number. Obviously, the foot and the stem are pressed, and that's it's quite a harsh process on the molds. They need to work out if there is distortion, so they know which mold to actually place. But actually, on a fine dining glass or a glass that you're tasting really high quality wines, you do not want mold numbers or mold marks on the foot plate. So again, that needs to be flat and smooth. And it's also important that obviously more people are wanting to hold the glasses by the foot. So the foot needs to be completely flat and smooth and not have any indentations or embossments. The flatter you can make the foot, in a way, the more elegant it is. The more, in visual terms, the more it looks like a mouth-blown product. But it also sits, obviously, on your finger better, so you can get a better grasp. You get a grasp of the glass. If it was concave, you would only feel it at either end of your finger. So Chef and Sommelier now makes all the bases flat, so that they are more comfortable to hold. And pretty much we've started on on the majority of the ranges. Is that the other benefit of, if you can get rid of the lip at the edge, is that the water will, during the washing process, obviously as the glass is vibrating, will fly off. If you pinch the foot pretty hard, if it has a very thick lip at the edge, of course you will feel that, and it's not as comfortable as if the whole foot is actually flat and smooth. So, the flatter the foot, the better it is as an option to be able to hold and use your wine glass holding it by the foot. Okay. In addition, quite a few manufacturers will make their glasses also by having a join at the bottom of the foot. I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but there's one at the top. This is a Spiegel product, and there's actually one at the bottom. So really, again, you want to get rid of all of those. Any joins or seams, can be over time attacked by detergents. So you don't want them. Those are weak points. And also in terms of touch, you want to be able to feel a completely smooth surface. So, one of the things we've done is to make sure there are no joins and seams now on any Chef and Sommelier item, as an improvement of the manufacturing process. Okay, this image just shows you, it's difficult to see a seam, but if you put your finger behind it and sometimes tilt it to the light, you can actually see that seam that runs down the stem where the mold is closed. Okay, hopefully, a large number of you got to experience a new glass that was launched really in 2020. It was designed alongside some of the best champagne sommeliers who are part of the Association of Sommeliers International, and there was a launch event in Copenhagen. This is the glass. What I've done is I've brought what perhaps most people would see as a conventional champagne flute here, so you can see them side by side. One of the things that is different is that obviously the bowl is larger. There's a larger aromatic chamber. There is a wider oxygenation surface, and there's quite a unique treatment that's been applied, which gives the ability of smaller bubbles that cover up a wider surface area, so that you're bringing the aromas to the surface more effectively. Typically, up until probably recently, most champagne flutes used to have one nucleation point, which would be right in the center and the bottom, and you'd just have a stream of bubbles. But effectively, what you really want is to have smaller bubbles that are across the whole surface and that are able to bring those very, very unique fragrances to the surface, and to have something like a chimney effect to be able to funnel those obviously to your nose. So this glass, it's a little bit taller than a conventional champagne flute. It's not actually a flute, it's its own unique shape. You see that the stem is thinner, more elegant. The foot plate is also wider. Again, having the ability to hold the glass by the foot is important, and it needs to feel comfortable. And the glass, obviously, in terms of presence on a table or on a bar top, it looks more elegant. But it's designed from a performance perspective as opposed to aesthetics. So I do hope a lot of you will get the opportunity to try it. Either if you tried it at this event, but if not, please contact me. I'm more than happy to arrange for samples. It's an incredibly great innovation, especially at a time champagne sales, sparkling wine sales are on the increase.
Hi, Chris.
Okay.
Sorry, to jump in very quickly. We've got a couple of questions, Chris, just that we thought we'd...
Okay.
I know what's coming next, and I thought I'd jump in quickly on this bit. So we've got two questions. One from Pasquale is, what about liability against chemicals from washing machines? I know you mentioned briefly around some of that. Is there anything else? Yes.
Okay, so the material that all chef and sommelier glasses are made from are tested to 2,000 wash cycles, and what we do is we use independent laboratories and we try different types of chemicals that are, I guess, typical ones that you'd find in most markets. So we don't just try it with one type of detergent. We're aware, and we get asked quite a lot by chemical companies to give them advice on temperatures. We ourselves visit a lot of hotel groups who have had issues in the past, not necessarily with our glassware, but to go and give them advice. One of the disadvantages is that if chemicals perhaps are less efficient, then operators tend to try and compensate that by actually increasing the temperature. And when you increase the temperature with washing, you actually cause more damage to the glassware. Glasses are not necessarily designed to be washed at 80 degrees plus, but that's what a lot of people do. And that's quite often as a knee-jerk reaction to try and make sure that absolutely everything is clean. So we do a lot of work with different chemical companies. Chef and Sommelier material is very robust in itself. It's when we do the trials, the washing trials, they're done with detergents, and we pick detergents that typically most large operators, the likes of Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, Radisson, that are using. We know the brands that are probably most popular, and we try them with those. And our tests show that 2,000 wash cycles with no surface degradation is pretty good. Most crystalline materials will only last 150 so washes before you'll see some sort of surface marking. Does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and Pasquale just commented as well about following up from your answer there, Chris. Is there a suggested washing temperature as well? Is there any suggestions around? Yeah,
ideally, ideally glassware, especially fine dining glassware. Now, there's different grades of glassware. If you're a canteen and you're using fully toughened soda lime glassware, that material will withstand a 130 degree temperature change. So those things are, it's not necessarily about the aesthetics or the performance in terms of wine tasting. They're about functionality. But crystalline and crystal materials are more delicate materials, and so really ideally you should be looking at sort of around sort of 60 to 65 degrees. And I know that's not always able to be achieved by some operators who set standards which perhaps are much higher than that in terms of temperature. I was in Hamburg about a year ago at 25-hour hotels, obviously now part of a core, who had an issue. And yeah, they had set their washers in, I think, 2 of the hotels at like 82 degrees. That is too hot glassware, especially if you're not allowing glassware to cool down, at a good rate. You taking it out and immediately start trying to use it. So 60, 65 degrees, if you can achieve that, will give you a longer lasting glass.
Super stuff.
Okay.
No, that's and Pasquale has also put, thank you so much for the answer. Really appreciate it. So great.
I thought
sorry,
any other question? We're just
there's one more that's just come in. Is what is the volume of the Champagne Analog Expert? So the one on the previous page, the Exaltation glass, I think.
Exaltation, that comes in two sizes, 35 centilitres and 30 centilitres, so two sizes. So it's obviously a more generous capacity, and that is also important. It's following the fashion. Most people don't want to have champagne smaller measures and have to keep topping it up, because if you're out with a group of people, it's to have to interrupt a conversation and refill your glass. It's not good. So for me, it's the way that the market needs to go is larger measures for champagne. This one out of interest, which is Cabernet, is probably one of the world's most popular champagne flutes, but it's only 16 centilitres. We were asked to make a larger size, which we did. So we have a larger size, which is 24 centilitres. But as with wine glasses, the trend now is to have larger measures and to be able to, in a way, also maximise the fragrances, which are also important for champagne as they are with wines. So, yeah, 30 and 35. Okay, I thought I'd sort of cover a few of the more popular glasses, but also at the same time give you some ideas of who uses them. And people always like to see what perhaps their neighbours might have picked and why they picked it. So the first glass is a range called Analog Expert. It was actually designed by a lady called Danny Rowland in 1991. One of the most senior wine experts in France, and she designed it for actually the Durand family, who actually were at the time the major shareholder of ARC, and one of the daughters had a Saint-Emilion vineyard. It's a performance glass that really, I guess, has influenced all the other shape glasses in France. So this was really the first proper tulip shape from which other ranges like Cabernet, Grand Cepage have developed. So it's probably the most typical French gastronomy tulip. Very elegant. It went a little bit thinner than in the stem, which was again a preference for sommeliers to go closer to 6 millimeters. It had a very elegant foot, again more splayed, and typically, restaurateurs like Alain Ducasse, who's obviously got 20 Michelin star restaurants out of 30, a number of his restaurants were using it. But interestingly, I went and presented glassware to Manchester United, and they at the time had a French chef, and actually I presented around 9 different glasses, and they picked that glass and said, well, that's a typical French fine dining glass. We love the style of it, the oversized capacity. You had a 55 centilitres and a 74 centilitres, and they actually went for the 55, and you can see it pictured in their restaurant. But interestingly, they must have been that pleased with it that probably 2 months later, they probably were speaking to Chelsea Football Club. I'm guessing that maybe Mr. Abramovich or somebody senior visited, and actually I got a phone call from Chelsea saying, could you come and present glassware? So I said, of course, and it's not often you get a call from a football club, a Premiership football club, to present glassware. So I went down to London and I started presenting glassware, and I actually got to the Analog Expert, with its very fine bowl, quite rounded at the bottom, and they went, hold on a minute, that's what Manchester United use. And I went, yes, it is. You're very well informed. And they said, what is better than that glass? So I said, what, better as in more expensive or better in terms of performance? And they said, both. We spent £75 million on a footballer. We can use anything we want, but what is better? So I went through a wine tasting with them, And this glass, which is open up, quite a unique shape. It's very iconic. You know, some of the most famous hotels around the world use it, and it's the most easily recognizable glass. Interestingly, probably around 6 or 7 years ago, Turnberry had, I think it was 3 sommeliers over 5 days testing all the different luxury glassware brands and different shapes with their wine to see which was the best performing. And this glass, the 55 centiliter tannic, came out as the best performance. That's the glass they use. And interestingly, after I did the tasting with Chelsea, that's the glass they picked. I would just love to have been a fly on the wall when Manchester United visited Chelsea and had the return game to hear the conversation about wine glasses. But anyway, this is the glass. You'll notice that the lower part is concave. The angle of the wall is designed, and also the angle of the rim, that when you actually drink wine from it, the speed of flow of the wine and the positioning puts it over the sugary part of the tongue. So it softens the wines, makes them more palatable perhaps to European tastes who prefer perhaps less tannins and wines that are a little bit softer. It also has probably one of the most comfortable feet. The foot is absolutely flat, no lips, and so even with a very large glass, it is very easy, you know, to rotate the wine without having to put it on a flat surface. It's quite a bit, around 15, 16 millimeters taller than most glasses, but again, it's still strong and durable. It has a very slight pulled stem at the bottom of the bowl, which actually, in a way, helps it look more elegant. And one of the things that obviously people are looking for is glasses that are not just performance glasses, but look attractive, look elegant. You know, people will remember back in the 80s, Habitat selling glasses with drawn stems. A range is called Michelangelo. This doesn't go to that length, but it's still very attractive with slightly of a drawn effect below the bowl. So that's open up. The next range, used by people who perhaps follow the World Best Sommelier competition of 2019, which was held in Antwerp. This was actually the range that the ASI decided to use for that competition. It's called Reveal Up. It's quite unique. It has a chimney, a very large aromatic chamber, a wide oxygenation surface. It comes in 2 varieties, a wide version and a narrow version. A very tall, thin, elegant stem. Again, following the fashion is to raise the bowl off the table, away from the dinnerware, which might have color, reactive glazes, so that you are looking as best you can straight into the glass at eye level without other colors reflecting into the glass. Again, it has a very wide foot diameter, makes it incredibly comfortable, and it's very flat, very comfortable to hold. And as a result, because it is a performance glass, some of the best places in the world, I've just detailed a couple that are quite interesting. So the M Gallery elements in Byron in Australia, but it's also in the a la carte restaurant in Kempinski in Frankfurt, quite a few of the Fairmonts, as well as obviously a number of it's endorsed by Julia Scavo, I think 5th best in the world, 3rd best in Europe in the World Sommelier competition. So it's a nice, attractive, but it's also following the fashion, and that is to be taller, more refined, a thinner rim. Again, no joins, no seams. Okay, I now got a glass here, which is it was quite a new glass around 4 years ago, and it's called Sublime. A lot of restaurateurs have been, trying to get more covers into their restaurant, and one of the ways to do that is to reduce the diameter of your tables. And sort of one of the questions that was posed, well, how can I make the table look less cluttered when I'm actually working a smaller area? Well, first of all, you need height. And secondly, you need a narrower diameter that will allow you to get the water glass as close to the base as you can, so they can sit in a small cluster. And then if you have a table for two, you've still got space in between, and it doesn't look too cluttered, too tight. The glasses still look elegant, and this was one of the first glasses to achieve that. And as a result, the foot diameter is a little bit narrower, so that you can get a nice curved, almost the stemless wine glass version of a water tumbler right next to the glass. But again, even with the extra height, very, very strong. So Kempinski were one of the first major groups to introduce it, but it's gone into, interestingly, to Hyatt, a number of their new projects, including the Handas in Vienna, for Hyatt in Addis Ababa, the Andaz in Munich. They've all taken that range, and another range is similar to it. Interestingly, the Radisson Blue in Glasgow took that, and what we then did was we added a wide version that you could use with a ballon as a dedicated red wine glass. So for those that obviously decided, no, I want to use that really because of the diameter, the smaller oxygenation area, as a white wine, that we added a red wine to it. And you'll see the height is one of the points which is quite important. I can see a question from a fellow about wine measures getting bigger. I would argue that the more premium of the industry, which represent the opposite, I would say I very rarely pour more than 100 ml. You're right. James, I'm going to answer this because it's quite interesting. Wine glasses are getting bigger, but obviously the pouring of wine for the customer to initially taste, is smaller. But you've got a much greater area and volume in order to circulate the wine before tasting it. What I would emphasize is that if you look at a glass that is this size, I'm going to move back a bit. If this is on the table, this has got 60 centilitres in capacity, and this glass is 35 centilitres. That the customer's perception, and that's what's important, it's the customer's perception, is that glass is more premium because of the larger bowl than that glass. Now, again, forgetting about, obviously, how much wine you want to pour, but if this glass was on the table, which is 35 centilitres, and this is the most common capacity across the globe for the initial wine glass that would be in most restaurants. If 4 people were sat down and ate a meal with that on the table, and apart from obviously the tasting, which they do at the start to make sure the wine is the right quality level, a lot of people like to pour wine themselves. So they typically, especially if they're not trained, will pour wine to eye level, around 2/3 full. With this glass, pouring even with 4 people who are dining together, then there's enough wine in the bottle left after the initial pouring, but they'll start the meal. Okay, and depending on how quickly they eat, they might actually only get through 1 bottle. If that glass was on the table, it looks more upmarket, but again, apart from the initial pouring to assess the quality of the wine, somebody will pour the wine again to 2/3 full. The largest part of the capacity of this glass is in the lower part. With 4 pourings, that bottle will be empty. So actually, it's been proved by Marriott that you can increase the wine takings of a restaurant without any promotion, without any increasing of the number of covers, just by the increasing of the capacity from around 35 centilitres to above 47. Ideally, 58 will give you the best impact. And at the same time, the wine glass looks more impressive on the table. So the restaurant sells more wine. The customer thinks it looks more impressive on the table, and it does. It has a more of a premium appearance. And there is more opportunity also for customers to actually photograph the glass as well as the plate of food. I hope that sort of answers the question a little bit. And again, it's a fashion. You know, people at home don't drink out of small glasses very often now. They drink out of much bigger size bowls. Okay, one of the hotels which is very close to my heart is the Midland Hotel in Morecambe. I used to live up in the north, and I actually got married there, which didn't last very long, but I love the hotel. Still great friends with it. And interestingly, being, I suppose, a hotel that has incredible interiors, sort of an Art Deco type of feel, they picked a glass which is called Vin, which is obviously young wines. It's part of the Cabernet range, which has got this angular profile. The glass, for me, the fashion now is to go a little bit thinner in the stem, but the profile is quite unique. And there are a number of very interesting hotels, including Hard Day's Night in Liverpool, Sofitel in Melbourne, using this glass. And obviously in the crystal material, when it's come out of the washer and it's looking bright, it's incredibly elegant, but incredibly strong and durable as well. If you want to go, I guess, with really more expensive, more vintage type wines, yes, you might go to perhaps something more like Revilla, but as an attractive glass that fits architectural type styles and trend like Art Deco, it's quite an interesting glass to use. You'll see that the footplate is still relatively wide, but obviously not as wide as you have with Revilla. And you'll see that the stem again is not as thin. So this is more fashionable at the moment. More sommeliers want thinner stems, but this is quite an attractive everyday restaurant glass that still has the ability to make wine taste that little better. Finally, I'm going to sort of talk about a glass which, interestingly, when I was out in South Africa, I visited Lanzarote, which is a 5-star establishment. It's a wine estate with some great wine, but it's also a place that a lot of, yachtsmen with their super yachts will call in and stay at. And they use this range, which is called Grand Cepage. The lower part is like a ballon. And if you can imagine, then instead of straightening at the top, you carried on that curve, it would be a very large round ballon that you might typically find in Italy for a Barolo. But it's very wide, and what we've done with it is we've straightened it and made it into an oversized tulip. And it's particularly good for tasting, obviously, full-bodied wine. Stem, again, not gone too thin, because it needs, the stem is tall. It needs to be glass that can be used in a restaurant with a large number of covers, so it needs to be durable enough. The glass needs to be able to, be used, 2 or 3 times a day, every day. And the footplate, again, is a workable diameter. Again, easy to hold. And comes in a number of sizes. This is the 62 centilitre, which tends to be the more popular. Again, people want to have a large size, and for the very reason that the lower part looks like a ballon. It was picked by the Park Hyatt in Shanghai, who had a large proportion of Italian guests visiting, and so they picked this particular glass to cater for Italian wines that they had, but also being a tulip would be more acceptable to a wider proportion of their guests. Finally, this is a glass that probably a lot of people are familiar and are used to sort of seeing now. It's a movement from a conventional French tulip to add a slight little angle, the stem going a little thinner, so it's gone to 6 millimeters. And it went into the Macquarie, which is a beautiful hotel and golfing resort on the Isle of Islay. But it also went into the Bella Sky in Copenhagen. And interestingly, the cluster head sommelier there, who had always used Riedel for, I think, the last sort of 15 years, and didn't really want to see anybody else. But obviously, when he saw the extra sort of refinement, the flat base, the fact that it had no lip on the bottom, the fact that there were no seams, and when he compared it to obviously his glassware, and then I guess the added benefit, the fact that I could hit it quite hard on his table, and he could see that it was certainly something that could withstand the rigors of daily use. 1 week later, he changed all his glassware. So this is a glass that really, I guess, is taking a lot of restaurants who perhaps use a conventional French tulip, maybe Cabernet, have started to move to, because it's just, if you held them at a distance, you wouldn't necessarily know they were different, but when you bring them close by, you see that extra refinement in terms of thinner stem, a little angle in the bowl. So anyway, I hope that was all interesting, and I've covered most of the things that everybody would probably find interesting, but I'm going to cover one thing more, which is there are 5 criteria or characteristics that influence your decision or what glassware you would pick, whether you actually realize it or not. The first one is wine sophistication, and what I mean by that is that if you looked at your wine menu and looked how detailed it was and the variety of different wines that you had and from the different parts of the world, as you go more sophisticated, that tends to indicate you want to have a glass that will help emphasize the qualities and the characteristics of those wines, and therefore it's a performance wine glass. A glass like Open Up or Reveal Up, or if it's Champagne Exaltation. If you were more about, you had a house white, a house red, and a sparkling wine, then wine quality probably is important, but it's not as important. So there is something else that might be more important in governing your decision. So one of the things I mentioned is the commercial aspect. How can you actually, because restaurants exist in order to make profit. They need to sell wine to make that revenue stream alongside obviously the food they're selling. Is no point in selling food when obviously wine is the accompaniment. So looking at the capacity of the wine glasses, though history says that 30-35 centiliters is the typical capacity, that really is outdated, and most of the leading hotel groups are going to larger capacities to obviously have that influence on the volume of wine they're able to sell without them needing to do anything, just by consumer behavior in them wanting to pour more wine into the bowl. The third thing is functionality, and that is when I was at the Hilton, the Molinino Ski in Venice, talking to the purchasing director, and I picked up from behind the bar a couple of his glasses that had a chip on the rim, and then I found one that had a chip on the foot. And I said, "Oh, is that common?" And he said, "Yes, it's a nightmare. We lose so many glasses from chips, and it means we continually are looking. Do we have to downgrade the glass in order to get something that will last a bit longer, or because we're losing so many?" So the fact that obviously Krista as a material is so more impact resistant means that the glasses last longer. Interestingly enough, and I'll put my hands up, he actually said, even that material, I think, Chris, our staff would manage to break probably almost as many. So I showed him a fully toughened wine glass that I actually hit a nail into a piece of wood with, and he said, "Perfect." And he changed the banqueting to that glass and said, "You can choose whatever glass you want to put in our fine dining restaurant, because what I will save in banqueting will pay for it." Interesting. a 5-star hotel in Monte Carlo has done exactly the same, but they have just put it throughout the whole hotel. So even if Krista may be viewed, even though it is stronger, then fully ton glassware can be something from a functional point of view that provides huge cost savings. Fashion and trend, I mentioned a few. Fashion to go slightly thinner in stem. The people are taking more wine courses, so make the foot thinner and wider so it is more comfortable to hold. Mirror certain architectural features that might appear in the restaurant in the bowl. So if there is soft curves, maybe portholes in the door, look for a bowl that has a nice, elegant curve. If the architecture is Art Deco, look for something that has an angle. That sometimes is important. And then finally, prestige. Sometimes it's about wanting the customer to recognize the glass almost as much as he recognizes the beautiful creation on the plate. I'll give you an example. The Michelin star gala dinner in Berlin used this glass. It's called Macaron. You'll see that it has a very unique curved sort of macaroon-shaped bowl, or a lady's body. This was the first time that the world press took photos of wine in glasses on the table before even the food arrived. If you can make people take a photograph of the wine in the glass, then they're more likely to remember the visit equally for the wine quality as well as the food quality. But also, they will like to upload it onto social media, which means you get the recall of that customer's visit to the restaurant because of the wine, and they will remember what the wine tasted like because they can remember the shape. That's important. Like you want them to remember what the food looked like when it was displayed. Anyway, I hope that was all interesting. And we're now, any questions?
That is super. No, we're back again. I think you can see us. Hopefully you can. We're very small. So if we just
there are a couple
of questions that we missed in between. So there was one from Francesco that said, at what time of the designing process were sommeliers considered for their expertise, and what helps the most from sommeliers' sort of considerations to help design some of those classes?
Sometimes really right at the start, if there's a particular target market that we have in mind for a particular range, is the glass being designed for banqueting, or is it a glass being designed for mainstream restaurants? What style of restaurants? Then, of course, we will involve sommeliers, wine experts. We'll ask for their feedback. We also rely on them to give us when I talked about fashions and trends, what they see as being important. So when I presented to the AC Hotels Bella Sky, and the head sommelier was saying, Chris, we really want now only glasses that are around 6 to 6.5 millimeters in stem thickness, because that's seen as now the benchmark for refinement. Historically, tulips were tulip is still the world's biggest selling profile, and we have a range called Cabernet, which was one of the first tulip shapes that was ever launched. And we've sold, I think, over 220 million glasses from that range alone. That's the world's best-selling wine suite.
Yeah.
But there is a move away to add slight angles, as I showed with even this range, which is called Sequence, but adding a very slight angle. So it's a very subtle angle in the bowl. We do take a lot of note of what sommeliers are saying, and in fact, we just launched a new range in the USA, actually partnering up with a very leading restaurateur and sommelier over there. I think the range is called Villeneuve, but really tall stems, oversized, which mirror some of these trends, but also obviously the shape has been, that was his particular preference. And we'll continue to talk to sommeliers. That's one of the things that I'm trying to do, build more relationships and take on board the feedback.
Definitely. No, I think it's interesting to see what sort of stage of the process those people are being consulted. So no, that definitely answers the question. And Francesco always give us a thumbs up as well to say thanks for the question. I think unless anybody wants to put their hand up or ask another question, I'm not sure if we click the. I'm going to stop you from sharing your screen, Chris. And there we go. We're a little bit larger now. People can see. So. From us to you, Chris, obviously, thank you so much for the presentation. There's lots of clapping emojis going in the little emoji box. Obviously, lots of engagement, lots of questions, lots of good points and good things to discuss. And obviously, some amazing glasses that you've shown us there, excuse me. And I still, as I said in the chat, I still get nervous every time you...
we do, every time you bang in the chat.
My heart, I can't cope with them. And even with, obviously, these are so beautiful. The Exaltations, when you do that with the glasses, I'm just like, I can't do that. I can't.
Maybe 15, 20 years ago, we launched a new beer glass, and I was with a purchasing director, quite a large pub group, and met at one of her venues. And I had this glass, and I dropped it on concrete from standing, and it bounced, and I videoed it, and. I was in the lounge area. I didn't realise. I looked at the carpet was actually quite a thick piled carpet. It was quite it was an upmarket sort of. And talking about the glass, and I got this glass, and I just hit it on the table a million times before, not an issue. Yeah. Smashed into 1,000 pieces in the carpet, and she said, "Whoa, are you mad?" Have you got a vacuumer?
Yeah, but yeah, time has changed since then, hey?
So the last big issue was 15 years ago.
No, super stuff, great story, and some great, obviously, stories there for your experiences. So.
Thank you for the invite. It's great to be involved with you guys for your event. Look forward to continuing the relationship.
Definitely.
If you want any help with advice, or you want help with glassware at any point in the future, I'm always a phone call away or an email away.
Of course. And
send that out to our guests as well. So.
Yeah, so anybody that's watching, anybody that wants Chris's details or whatever, you can add him on LinkedIn. He shares some great stuff on LinkedIn all the time. And also, if you don't mind, Chris, if anyone asks for your details, we'll have.
Absolutely. I am more than happy to give advice. That's for free, no issue at all. Always happy to help restaurateurs. So good luck with the rest of the event.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
So before we leave everybody else, we will quickly say a couple of thank yous and goodbyes ready for tomorrow. So there we go. Thank you, Chris. We've all managed to deal with the software tonight.
Yeah,
it's been good. So obviously, I hope you enjoyed that first masterclass with Chris. I know there's some comments in here, some great questions as well. Tomorrow from 4:30, the social lounge will be open. So log on early if you want to.
You want to get back on that speed dating?
Yeah, the speed dating, speed networking. Get yourself on that from 4:30. And your first session tomorrow, if you can join us, is from 5 p.m. And that will be from the managing director of Bamar, who are the champagne and wine preservation system that they use in hotels and fine dining restaurants across the UK. And Tom also joined us tonight for a brief period to obviously check out the system and things. So his presentation is really insightful tomorrow around wine list. What Wine List Redefined is what it's called. It touches on things that we're trying to do, but also looks at the current wine market and obviously all their experiences within the industry as well. So that should be very, very beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, and then at 6 p.m. we have got a Meet the Producer, which is our first of this week, and it's with Alice from... I can't speak.
It's a good job I'm driving, hey? Where's that spittoon?
Yeah, with Alice.
From Warren Human.
Thank you.
There we go. We got there in the end. So Alice will be joining us tomorrow.
So we've got a bit of a Q&A. You can meet her and we can ask some questions. We're going to pose some questions to Alice, but obviously you guys know how to work the software.
So those that have tasted Voyage Jumel's cuvées this week might have some questions for her. If you're tasting them later in the week as well, you might have some questions for her after that. But yeah, have a read of the portfolio, some of the material that we've sent out to you, and that might give you some ideas for some questions as well. Alice is superb, she's great fun, and she'll give us lots of information on her wonderful Grand Cru Blanc de Blanc Chardonnay champagne. So don't forget to bring a glass tomorrow, whatever's in it, and we can all say cheers to Wednesday's session. So thank you very, very much. I hope you enjoyed this day of Champagne Redefined Growers Gastronomy Conference 2021, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
And if you've got a one-to-one tasting session with us tomorrow, then we look forward to seeing you personally.
We'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Thank you very much, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.